waiting time for this guy is that travel between the landing terminal and the departure terminal on a connecting flight internationally makes me more anxious than almost any other time in my life. Because if you get in the wrong seat on that tram going from Terminal A to Terminal E, you're toast. You're going to miss your flight, and now you're thousands of miles from home and days from getting back. That's what I want to talk about in this episode of Leading Leaders. Stay tuned.
Think storytelling's just for bedtime? Nah, it's the secret sauce for business magic. Stuck in a rut with bland pitches and yawning clients? Enter Boost Your Business with Story Power. 6 weeks of epic storytelling training. It's like leveling up in a video game but for your career. Master the art of narrative and watch connections blossom like a viral TikTok. Simple, impactful, and game-changing. Ready to transform your biz vibes? Dive in now and make storytelling your superpower.
Subscribe now for access to our extensive media library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom. Begin your personal growth plan at StoryPowerAcademy.com for leadership development and communication skills training.
I'm J. Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast. On the last few international flights that I've had, fortunately, some reasonable layovers. Layovers are a good thing when you're traveling internationally because it gives you a chance to get off the plane, stretch your legs, move around. I don't know if you've flown to Africa or not, but it's a minute. Flying across the Atlantic, several hours on a plane. Flying from Europe into Africa, at least another 13 to 15 hours on a plane. My first flight to Africa, I ended up sitting in a seat next to a woman who was pregnant and had a 2-year-old who already had an attitude, had been in an airplane way too long, and she was not having any of it. Now, I didn't book my flight, so I didn't get to pick my seat, and I had no idea where I was. All I told the company that was booking the flight for me to fly over and speak was, I want near the wing, an exit row if you got one, and I want on the aisle seat. Why? Well, because I'm claustrophobic, and I don't like being pinned to the window. I love to look out the window, but I'll give up looking out the window to be on an aisle seat for a quicker exit any day of the week because I'm claustrophobic. I'm weird like that. But I didn't get to pick. I'm sitting next to a mom who didn't buy a seat for her toddler, and so toddler's sitting in her lap the entire time. Toddler can't take a nap. Toddler's not happy. Toddler doesn't want to be on the plane anymore, and we got to hear every minute of it for a while. At one point, I finally said, hey, can I take your toddler for a minute, let you eat your meal, and maybe we can get a little peace and quiet between us? And so I took her toddler, and I went to the bulkhead, and I stood up, and I held the baby, and I rocked the baby until she went to sleep. Now, she went to sleep in my arms while I'm standing up, and there's no place to put her down. And so by the time she went to sleep, there were a lot of people looking at me going, that's obviously not your baby. She was a native from Africa, and I don't look like I am. So when I went back to the seat holding the baby, everybody's looking at me like, where'd you get the baby? And when I gave her back to her mom's like, how did you get her to go to sleep? I haven't been able to get her to sleep for hours. I'm like, well, maybe it was just a change of pace. I don't know what it was, but she got her rest for a while. And then food was everywhere. And then she was everywhere. Look, this leadership lesson isn't about toddlers and babies and inconveniences and how disturbing it is to be on a flight for 13 hours next to a toddler who doesn't want to sleep, who's not your kid. It's really hard to have grace and patience when it's your own kid. When it's somebody else's, it takes a different kind of you to do that. I didn't get to choose that seat. I chose the aisle seat near the wing. Well, because, the turbulence in the plane is always worse in the back. And I don't budget flying first class very often, ever. I've never flown first class. I hear they have all kinds of cool treats up there, like in completely enclosed the little Easter egg areas where you can sleep and nobody disturbs you. And when they do, it's to bring you champagne and caviar and hot towels. I don't know. I've never been there. I can tell you, though, that choosing your seat on the plane is sometimes a financial decision. In fact, now that everybody is gone, even Southwest, my beloved Southwest, I used to fly Southwest from Austin to San Antonio or from Dallas to San Antonio on a regular basis. And man, you could pop on there, and if you were at the front of the, if you got to the airport early enough to get through security early enough to get to the gate early enough to be in the front of the line early enough, when they started boarding, you could pick any seat you wanted to. If you wanted to walk right on and sit in the front seat, you could. If you wanted to go all the way to the tail so you'd be close to the restroom, you could. I don't know why you'd want to do that. Those can get a little smelly. But you could pick any seat you wanted to, not so much. Now you got to pay if you want the seat with a little extra leg room. You got to pay even more if you want the exit row. You got to pay even more if you want to be close to the wing or close to the door. In fact, sometimes they just randomly pick a seat and they're like, yeah, that one's more. And you don't really get to pick. But if money's not an issue and you can pick any seat you want to, you still have to choose wisely. Is it the structure of the craft that you're traveling on? I mean, where do you want to be on a cruise? The first cruise my wife and I went on, we had the complete understanding before we even got to the boat. Hey, I don't plan to spend any more time in that room than it takes to sleep. I'll cuddle you in that room, we'll sleep in that room, and then we're going to go enjoy all the activities on the boat and on the shore. And why do we need a beautiful room? On the second cruise, we paid the extra, not just to have a room with a view, because the first one we were actually below the waterline. The second one, we got above the waterline and we got a balcony. Yeah, now we can actually see the water. But we got a balcony that had the steel barricades on both sides of our balcony, a little bit of privacy, if you will. We could see the water, but you couldn't see much else. And we didn't get a big suite, but we got a nice one. I think next time I want to be a little higher up. I want to have a nice glass balcony. I want to be able to see everything around me. I know that means I'm going to pay a little more for that seat. We attend a lot of events too, from concerts to learning events, seminars, training events, some that I'm speaking at and some that I'm not. And I'm always fascinated to watch the introverts and the extroverts and how they choose where they're going to sit. Some want to be right on the front row. And it's interesting to me at a learning event specifically, when someone will choose to sit right on the front row and they kind of spread out and they have their name badge and their name tag and all their personal stuff, and it's on the front row on the floor, and it's obvious they have come here to camp out to be on the front row. And some of them do that because they're the old welcome back Kotter, me kind of people. They want to be engaged in the conversation. They feel like the closer I am to the front row, the more directly I'm engaged with the people who are on the platform. And in some cases, that's true. And in some cases, they're only there because they're extroverts and they want to be engaged in everything and they want everybody to see them. And they go to the front because they know everybody in the room can see them. It's also fascinating to me, depending on the nature of the person on the platform, how they respond to the people on the front row. I've been at events where my family was invited to come, or my friends were invited to come. And they're like, do you want them to be seated in the front as VIPs? And I'm like, I'd love them to be treated like VIPs, but to be honest with you, I'm not going to say much today they haven't already heard, which means their natural reaction level is going to be much smaller. If I say something that's intended to be funny, a little bit of a punchline, I'm not going to get a punchline level reaction out of them because they've heard all my jokes before. I'm perfectly okay if they sit near the back and you put somebody who's never seen or heard me before close to the front. The natural reaction will be more powerful. And as a speaker, that natural reaction becomes very viral when it's spontaneous. So if I'm going to be on the platform, I'm perfectly okay with my friends and family sitting further to the back so that other people can encounter me for the first time in a new and fresh way. I advise that to all of my speaker clients as well. If you have a chance to decide where people are going to sit, put the people who have large amounts of influence in the crowd but have never heard you speak before, put them close to the front. Their reaction will spread a reaction throughout the rest of the crowd. if your family has heard the punchlines and they're not going to laugh, they're not going to giggle, they're not going to applaud immediately, then you're not going to get the kind of viral reaction. Everybody's looking to them for the cues. They want to know, was that supposed to be funny? And if they don't laugh because they've already heard that joke, you lose a lot of ground with that. Now, when you go into an event, if you've purchased a ticket or it's a free event, how do you decide? Am I going to sit on the front row, front and center, so that I have undivided attention, so that no one can distract me? That's the threat of sitting in the back, right? You see all the other people who are playing on their phones, or they're taking notes in a weird way, or they're dozing off and they're not taking notes at all. And when you sit in the back, you can see all of that. Is that good or bad? Well, I guess that depends on your learning style and your objective. What are you there for? If you're there to enjoy the concert, you don't want a whole lot of distractions, but maybe being close is too loud. If you're there to learn a lot, maybe you don't want all the distractions, so you sit up front, but then you also think, what are the people behind me thinking of me because I'm sitting in the front? There's a whole lot that goes into choosing that seat. You know, there's actually an ancient text that says, when you come into a place, don't choose the seat of honor up front. Choose a different seat and leave the seat of honor open, because you don't know if you take that seat, presuming I am the person of honor today, that someone may more important, more respected, more recognized from protocol standpoint, genuinely more important than you in this environment, is going to walk in. I mean, I'd hate to walk in and sit down at a second to the head of the table kind of a seat, and then have the person at the head of the table have their spouse come in and have to sit 3 or 4 seats away because I chose to sit at the wrong seat. But when people don't have an understanding of protocol, when they have a more elevated sense of self than they should, they'll often violate that protocol. They lift themselves up rather than humbling themselves. They raise themselves to that seat of honor because they believe they deserve it. And with our entitled society the way it is today, that's a very common thing. It's really sad that we found this place where people are. We found a place where my microphone is having a hard time working. Is that better? No, wait. Now I just have to go this way because my microphone has lost its mind. There we go. I hate it when that happens, but it happens. So in our entitled society, we have a lot of people who feel like, I'm going to move to the front because I want to get the recognition. I'm going to sit where I want to. I'm going to do what I want to. That's on that side. This mic is not turned on. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's see if that does any better. I'm going to try to plug this mic back in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Check. Nothing like live. There's nothing like live. In our society where entitlement has said, I get what I want, I take my space, I declare for myself, because I said it, it's true, I can make these declarations, I can make these determinations, and nobody can say or do anything about it. There's some challenges with that, and the challenge is that we tend to pick a seat that's not our seat to sit in. We've been given the idea that if I want it, I deserve it. And if I feel like I deserve it, I don't care what anybody else thinks about it. Obviously, that presents some challenges. First off, it presents some relational challenges. What kind of relationship will you have with the people around you when you presume to take that first space every time? Do people look at you and think, wow, very egotistical? Do people look at you and think, wow, they must know something about this environment, these people, this training that I don't know? Do they think this person's going to superimpose themselves in every environment, and so there's no humility there? I do know people who walk into an environment and they presume upon themselves, I am the leader in the room. Even if it's the first time I've ever been here. I've done so much, I've accomplished so much, I've been so many places. And so that presumption carries them to the front of the room. And the really scary part is there are many places where the most influential, the most decisive, the most powerful, in every sense of the word of a human, is also the introvert or the most observant. They sit at the back of the room. They don't say anything. Nobody knows who they are. I recently spoke at a conference, and during the conference, when I did my bit, if you will, I had 45 minutes. I did my 45-minute teaching, and about a dozen people came up and they said, wow, that was very impressive. I learned a lot. I'm going to take a lot of notes. They did the free download, the whole thing. And as I was standing at my seat, about to sit down during a break session, a guy walks up, and the host walked up, and they walked up at exactly the same time. And I'm thinking, okay, which one of these two guys do I give priority to? Do I turn my attention to the host, or do I turn my attention to the guy who's sitting 2 rows behind me and pay attention to him? And before I could make the decision, the guy who was sitting 2 rows behind me starts talking. And the host stopped in his tracks, let the guy 2 rows behind me finish what he had to say. And I was like, well, A, that was very gracious. And B, that meant a lot, because what the guy had to say was really good. And now he just said it in front of the host, and that was really good. He was like, man, I love what you said. I'm going to apply everything you've done. I'd love to have you come and speak in front of our crowd. And I was like, that's what I want. That's my ambition. That's my endeavor. And then when he was done, the host says, that's the $3 million man. It's the first guy in our industry to reach that level with his business. And if he says that was good, I'm happy that I brought you here. And I just won on all of those levels. And the guy sitting 3 rows behind me is the highest earner in their industry at this point. Why is he sitting back there? Because he's an observer. He's also sitting back there because he knows he's got things to do, and he may have to step out for a minute to take a phone call. And so it's really easy to know that there were people on the front row who some of the other speakers from the stage acknowledged them and said, hey, so glad, I love the people that sit on the front row. I know you're going to be engaged. I know that's why you're up here. I know you're here to learn. You were ready to focus on and get rid of all distractions. True. But the most influential guy in the room was sitting in the back. So how do you choose where you sit? Is it the introvert-extrovert decision? Is it the investment decision? I've been to events just recently where if you wanted to be on the front 2 rows, you had to pay almost 3 times as much. If you wanted to be on the front row and come early and have lunch with the people on the platform, you had to pay almost 10 times as much. And I've been to events where if you pay enough, not only do you get that designated seat, you get to come in early, you get to pick whatever seat you want, you get to have lunch with the people on the platform, and sometimes even dinner after. But you got to pay for that seat. Now here's the real question. As a leader, as an influencer, as you're growing your business, as you're growing your realm of influence, when is it worth ponying up for the first class seat on the flight, for the wing seat on the flight because it's safer, for that seat on the tram that takes you from Terminal A to Terminal E, because if you don't have a long layover, getting in the wrong seat on that tram while you're watching all the people going on vacation with their 62 suitcases and 4 toddlers trying to get on and off of the tram, you and your single backpack may not make your flight at all because you sat in the wrong place on that tram. That seat could cost you your flight. That can be a problem. There was a season that I was flying on a regular basis. Every other Monday, I had to fly to another state. And about 80% of the time, that particular flight, that 8 a.m. Monday from Dallas to Columbus, would be overbooked. I don't know why people are going to Columbus at 8 o'clock on a Monday morning, but they were. And I knew that if I didn't book that flight early enough, I was going to get bumped. And with all the people who are flying who are willing to upgrade and they're willing to pay that extra money, I was going to get bumped. And so I started booking the 6 o'clock flight. Nobody wants to be at the airport at 4 o'clock in the morning, trust me. And by the time you get to the 4 o'clock in the morning, that means you've been up since 2 to get ready, to get packed, to get to the airport by 4 o'clock. You get through TSA, you get to the gate, you're already tired. What kind of work day is that going to be? I mean, yeah, maybe you get to the airport, you land at your destination by 7, you get to the office by 8. They still expect you to work an 8 or 10-hour day, exhausted because you've been up since 2 in the morning. There was nothing good to come of that. But I did realize if I booked that on Monday, that I scheduled my speaking or my trainings at 2 o'clock on Monday, because I almost never got on the 8 o'clock, but I almost always got on the 10 o'clock. It worked out. I just scheduled that, stayed a little later, made for a later day. I picked my seat based on the known parameters. How much do you know about where you're going? How much do you know about the environment that you're putting yourself in? Is this an environment where that extra pony up puts you in first class next to somebody that maybe you've never spoken to before? Maybe that pony up puts you in the VIP, where you find somebody to have a conversation with you've never had a conversation with before. You've never had access to them. And now all of a sudden, being a VIP, you get to have that conversation. Maybe it's somebody on the platform that you really want to collaborate your business with. You love what they're doing, and what they're doing is not what you're doing, but it would be a great business. Your customers could benefit from them and vice versa. Well, sometimes getting a meeting with them is near impossible. But when you buy up to that VIP, when you pay for that little extra to be there, it changes things. So what could you get with that VIP? What would you get if you chose your seat differently? The aisle seat versus the middle of the row? What if you did move closer to the front? Who would you find there? It's not just about how would you enjoy the concert or the conference, the seminar or the learning, the class. Yeah, all of that is true. But who kind of people do you find in those kind of seats? What kind of way do they think? What kind of business do they do? Do you want to be at the front row to be noticed by the people on the platform, or do you want to be the back with the guy that's making all the money? But that's not always the case. Sometimes the guy making all the money is sitting in the front. He doesn't want all those distractions. He's here to learn. He's here to grow. That's how he got to me making that much money. These are all thought processes that I want you to consider as a leader. Don't just come in with that entitled attitude that I get to sit wherever I want. I get to do whatever I want. Think about the strategic aspect of where you're sitting. Is it going to mean you get in and out of the building faster? As a firefighter and as a soldier, I'm always looking for the fastest exit. How can I get out? What's my fastest egress? How do I know I'm going to be able to safely get me and my family out the door if something happens? And with the level of terror attacks that are happening all over the globe right now, we should all be astute to that concept. We should all be looking out for our family. We should all be prepared to help them. While that goes into the factor of where will I choose to sit, I'm still asking the question, where will I find the kind of people that I can build relationship with, that I can do business with, that I can change my world with, that I can invest in, that I can pour into them and make their life better? If I'm thinking about those things as I go in, I'll choose my seat differently. Choose my seat more wisely. And that's really what I'm challenging you to. Don't just go in and find the seat that gives you the best light. Yeah, that's good. That gets you the best sound. Yeah, that's good. If you don't want to have to put your glasses on and off and on and off and on and off, I have readers. I don't have readers. I don't have to see close. I can't see if it's too far away. Highway signs half a mile away. Without my glasses, I can't read them. Video screens half a mile away. Without my glasses, I can't read them. But I don't like taking them on and off when I'm writing. I want to look up at the screen and look back down. So if I'm within 25, 50 feet of the screen, most of the time I can read the screen and read what's in front of me, and I don't have to take my glasses on and off. Sometimes that's the decision maker of where I sit. I'm just being practical and pragmatic. But more often it's, Where's the egress? Where's the energy? Where can I influence and be influenced in this particular environment? I don't know how much you put into choosing your seat, but what rooms are you in? What rooms do you buy into? What rooms do you pay to be a part of? Pay a little extra for the VIP. Pay a little more for that exclusive access. Pay a little more to get a little more. It's not always possible, but when it is, I recommend you do it. Do it strategically. Choose your seat wisely. I'm going to tell you, we've got a retreat coming up in June. And this is a retreat for only about 24 people max. And that's even if you're sharing rooms, because there's only 15 rooms on the entire property. Right now, we've got 5 of them already reserved, so there's about 10 left. But we're also competing with the fact that this is Lake Granbury in the summer. It's a beautiful spot, and it's literally on the water. Fishing dock, boating dock, on the water at the resort. You could come and go right off the lake all day long and just have a great time. Saltwater swimming pool. So we're competing for those other 10 rooms, and the faster we get them booked, the more likely it's all just us. I would love for you to be a part of that retreat. That retreat is all about story power. We're going to be learning about how the power of the things that you've lived through can shape the future of your life. We're going to talk in depth about the 7 C's and what it means to learn to roar, and how do you use your stories to grow your business in the media, and how do you use your stories to grow you in the mirror. And if that's something that would mean something to you, I would love for you to be a part of that retreat coming up in June 2026. And yes, we have some VIP with exclusive opportunity to be right here in the studio, because it's only about 2 miles from the resort center. You come down here and do some one-on-one stuff, get some video production done. That's part of the VIP package of being at the retreat. I'd love for you to check it out, to be a part of it. We're going to roll an ad that's actually got a QR code in it. You can reserve your spot for just $500. Choose whether you want VIP or not. You're going to be amazed at the price. But I'm going to tell you right now, this is your chance to be in the room in an intimate setting with the Story Power leadership team. A chance for you to have a deep impact, to have one-on-one work, to have small group work on the stories that you tell. And you're not going to get that anywhere else. So take a look at this ad and choose your seat wisely. I'm J. Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast for Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day. There is a retreat coming up that I want you to know about. It's called the Story Power Academy Retreat. This Story Power Retreat is about focusing on your communication skills, taking them to the next level. Discover, develop, draft, deploy, and deliver some of the best stories you've ever learned. You're going to listen, create, connect, relax, and reflect around this beautiful lake scene in Granbury, Texas. It's a chance to rejuvenate and refresh and start over with some of the best training you can possibly imagine around storytelling, leadership, and communication. Join us, get away, and relax.
Subscribe now for access to our extensive media library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom. Begin your personal growth plan at StoryPowerAcademy.com for leadership development and community.